Hey guys, welcome back. It's super warm out here, even though it's like night outside. We're getting like tropical humidity, but I like the warm. I like the warmth. I do not enjoy winter, so I'm gonna go with it. But what I wanted to discuss today is first of all, this kind of savior paradigm that seems to be at the heart of every religion, every mindset, every programming, every belief system that we seem to find ourselves in. Now, I know I may have discussed a little bit of this in other videos, but again, I want to expand and then bring new ideas to it. Because I was watching this video recently, and it was this very like new agey guy, although he was more inclined to the divine feminine side of that, which you can see that fully throughout New Age. It's a very feminine movement, right? I mentioned this before, and that's designed specifically to open up everyone that's in that movement so that they can be more easily infiltrated by these entities, right? Because when you're in your feminine, you're in your receptive mode, and you lack boundaries, right? You lack assertiveness, right? So you become more feminine. All the men become more feminized, and all the women become even more receptive than they really are. They open up all their blockages, right? Especially with the onset of psychoactive drugs, right? Like hallucinogenics, psychoactives. And this guy had a whole altar to like what seemed like some sort of feminine woman, right? There's a picture on there, and he was describing his meeting with Sophia, and I believe it was some sort of shrooms trip. It was like a huge dose. So he's talking, and he's mentioning how he believes he's getting all these life lessons from Sophia, and a lot of them are tests too. And then during this particular trip, he had a very intense test and lesson, right? And up until this point, Sophia had been kind of reminding him of how he believes this demiurge figure was missing the feminine aspect, right? And that's why everything is so corrupt here, right? And that's the common belief, that it's missing the feminine aspect, which I would like to address as well, first of all, before we get the rest of the story, because if this is her creation, isn't it actually missing the masculine aspect? And what we got really is a distorted type of both, right? The mama's boy dynamic with the demiurge and Sophia are both actually missing the masculine aspect, kind of like a son that was raised solely by the mother, right? It's that virtue, that discipline, or I guess you can say Saturn embodies that. That's what they tell us in astrology. But that loving father, right? Instead of the brutal, toxic, what's called military-like, disciplinary-like father, controlling father, dictatorial is the word I was looking for. Dictatorial father. We get a more loving father, more empathetic father, a father that's stern and fair, but also empathetic and sympathetic, and can integrate and lead the family, right? And we see that in these toxic family scenarios where it's just the mother and the son, and the mother essentially tries to replace the husband with the son by attaching to him and loving him more than she should, taking care of him more than she should, right? And that becomes toxic, similar to the whole Osiris and Isis story, right? Sophia and Demiurge. So she's raised a spoiled brat, and now she doesn't want to let go of it, potentially. So I don't think the feminine is what's missing. I think there's too much feminine, and then that's created a toxic masculinity, a brat. But because of that toxic femininity, I think, was what's happening. Anyways, the story goes that he then, or or she then helps him reason that, hey, because you have that lumen, they call it, which again, lumen is an allusion to Lucifer. Because you have that lumen inside of you, you could potentially help this demiurge. And she said that he made it this far, with all of the trials and lessons and tribulations, right? Which again is a red flag in my opinion, through these DMT trips, that he now gets a wish. Another red flag, right? It's kind of like a genie type of thing, jinn, demons. He's gonna give him a wish to either grant a material desire, which apparently was materializing her in the flesh, having her there, which sounds like a fetish. But either that, or giving his lumen, his feminine part, to the demiurge. And the guy's like, oh, this is a test, this is a test, this is a test, right? And he needs to figure this out. I'm gonna try to post the video. It was interesting. Some of the stuff he was saying was actually accurate in my opinion, which is why I stayed to hear the rest. And I'm glad I did, because there's a lesson in this deception, right? He ends up giving his light essence, which is it seems to be his spirit, his soul, or whatever, and he feels it leave, and he feels empty, right? He goes to sleep empty, and it feels like she's left him, right? That essence has left him, and he gives it to the demiurge, right, to potentially save this place. But anyway, she comes back, and it was all test, and that's kind of how it ends, and he gets her back, I guess. It was just the fact that he was willing to give it up. But kind of like the whole making a deal with the devil, is that really what she secretly wants, right? Was she just testing to see if he would do it, right? And then to lead him to the final boss, let's say the demiurge, where he actually gives it up, or where he actually just gives it back to her, or something of that nature. Because by doing so, you sort of accept her as your savior, right? You accept it as its savior, whatever. They seem to be like a tag team. It seems to be the whole AI world copy or creation by them, or whatever is going on. And judging by the whole Christ counterpart thing, I was thinking maybe she could be on our side, maybe she is helping. But by how much infiltration there is of this being in New Age and all these thinkings and Freemasonry, which I'll get to in a second, it just does not seem like she truly wants us to leave this place, right? That's why it's called the Ma's tricks. She keeps tricking us into staying here, keeps wanting, or at least intending for us to stay here. Maybe she herself is trapped in this place. And you could say the same thing about Jesus' name and how it's being used against whatever, the Christ element. And maybe it's the same as being done with Sophia, the creation of a false mother. That is also an arguable point. But what I would like to mention is that with the Freemasonry aspect, right? Freemasonry is basically Jewish Kabbalah, which is basically Mithraism. It starts in the Vedic, right? They have a Bhagavad Gita, they have a Bible, but they look into more of the Bhagavad Gita. So you can tell that there are Vedic roots to it. Now you've heard on this channel before the mention of Mitra and Varuna. Mitra, the Luciferic part, more of the Promethean part, whereas Varuna more of the feminine Luciferic part, the Sophianic part, right? And in Jewish Kabbalah, Judaism was a matriarchal system, matriarchal society, with Ein Sof at the top as the monad. Now, if you rearrange these letters, monad, you get daemon, which is demon. But, that could be a stretch. But I do not think that the monad, the way that they draw that monad, is the true, ineffable one. It could be the source of this place, kind of like the grand architect, right? Because when you draw the monad, you get the Vesca Pisces, which is where you get, the Fisher of Man, Jesus, but you also get the all-seeing eye in that middle Vesca Pisces, intersection point, overlapping of the circles. You get an eye in the middle, and that's the all-seeing eye of Lucifer. Now, the reason I don't think that this Luciferic being is necessarily, good or some savior for us is because you just have to watch these Freemasonry exposés where they're saying that this being is at the top of their chain. That's who they worship, and that's who they conduct all these sacrifices to. That's who they, do all these horrible things for. They consider themselves craftsmen. They consider themselves guardians of this place, right? And then to establish a temple for this being to materialize in the flesh. Ding, ding, ding. Very similar to what this guy experienced, right, with Sophia. So that's interesting to me. Not to mention the Mithraic connections we made on the channel with, again, the initiatory levels, and how in Mithraism the second one is like the shaming ritual, right, where they dress up as the other gender, right? But also the Abrahamic idea where they have to either sacrifice their firstborn or change the gender, right? That idea is also present. And this is mainly to get them to become gods in this world, right? They believe that they are gods in this world. That's the only place you can really become a god, in the world of illusion, right? That's the only place you can become a god, because the true ineffable one is going to be the ineffable one wherever, in the real realm, wherever you go. And you can be part of that, but you're not going to be a god or whatever. But here you can be a god. Here you can have powers that no one else has, because it's all fake, right? And at the chain, at the top of this chain, the top of this hierarchy is Lucifer, right? This being who they say, oh no, that's he's the savior. He actually rebelled against Yahweh, the demiurge. Well, yeah, Prometheus rebelled against Kronos, sure, and then sided with the Olympians, right? But it was of no good still, right? They just fought for power. They just fought for godhood, essentially, right? Let's say Yahweh the Titan, Kronos the Titan, was this rough being. Well, you can attribute Prometheus or Lucifer to this evil genius, evil maniac genius that also wanted power, also wanted to rule, but just favored knowledge over brute force, right? And that's really why I had to stop with Giorgiani's research. Yeah, I could tell it was affecting me. It was trying to get me to believe along those lines, which at their very core are incredibly racist, right? It's Aryan philosophy. And not only that, but the whole savior program, right? I joined one of his Telegram, and he was huge on Trump. Like, oh my God, the whole script that they did with the whole thing where they almost killed him, right? In my opinion, that was just not it. It was not real. From just the motives, intents, the staging, the coincidences, the too many unexplained events and situations that happen. Anyways, he was just proposing that this man is a savior, and he is completely engulfed in that savior program. And I made a comment to him that his political biases were clouding his judgment, and he really had an outburst towards me, and it was rather insulting. Not necessarily towards me, but I had lost respect for him because of that. Because I'm like, yo, how can you be so intelligent yet not see these things right in front of you? And it's because of that savior program, is that program those underlying beliefs that that's why he subscribes to this Promethean ideology, because at his core he wants some sort of savior, even though he seems to be deeply atheistic, doesn't believe in fate, right? Anyways, it's not about him, this video, but I'm trying to say that this like Sophia, Lucifer, Prometheus ideology are being set up right now to emerge as the savior, right? So whether it's New Age, whether it's Prometheanism, whether it's Trump politics, right? Christianity with religion, or Sophianism with Gnosticism. If you don't get the full picture, you're just left with, the fractured conclusions, and you're going to end up in that same mentality. I mean, think about it. It's just like this Freemasonry video was describing. It's sun worship, right? And he was more Christian, right? But he didn't, I guess he never watched Jordan Maxwell, with how Jesus was basically sun worship as well. Unless it was the true Christ that was here. But what they did at least was paint sun worship all over him as well. But he was pointing out how, at the root of Luciferian religion is this Vedic sun worship, Mitra type of worship. And Lucifer could even be tied to Polaris, which is what I'm discovering recently, how Polaris is actually called Dhruva in Vedic astrology. It's the Dhruva Nakshatra, and it's ruled by the sun, right? And Ursa Major spins around it, and it creates the inverse swastika, or the original swastika, right? But it's always pointing towards Polaris, towards the king, as they call it. So Polaris is the king of this earth, right? Lucifer is the king of this earth, is the eye in the sky, potentially. Polaris, Iris, the Polarians, Aryans, I don't know. There's a connection there, I'm sure. But it is this sun worship, and even in New Age, right? To get into the fifth dimension, there will be a bright, shining light solar event, and that'll be essentially the harvest or the rapture, or the sun exploding or whatever. The AI getting reset by the sun, right? And then you'll all be saved, and you'll be good. So these are the commonalities that I wanted to point out in this video. Things to look out for, so that you don't, fall prey to these pitfalls. But also something just to think about, because really there does not seem to be a savior. We are responsible for ourselves and for each other, right? So I think it's best to always share your truth, share what you authentically think, your own conclusions based on what you've been noticing, right? Our pattern recognition. Because that's really what all this place is. It's patterns, fractals, and they use the same tricks over and over again. So let me know what you thought in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, give it a like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care. Bye.